Well, see, if you want to be a person after God's own heart, you want to go deep with Christ, you want to glorify Him, you want to walk with Him, you want to enjoy Him forever, you want to have communion with Christ, this is the path to get there. We must walk it. We must pursue as David did. A couple of more. Look at verse 29. What does he say here? Put false ways far from me, and graciously teach me your law. Here was a man who wants all false ways out of his life. Gone. This is such a challenge, because the tentacles of the world, sitcoms, Grey's Anatomy, movies that even Christians will say, well, that was a neat movie. It took God's name in vain. It had vile sexual things in it. And yet it emotionally moves people. So Christians compromise. The world still has its tentacles in believers. And there's false ways in our lives that haven't been removed. Would to God that we got honest about it and we had the grace and the courage to pray, Lord, I'm coming. I want to ask you, this is scary, but I want to ask you that everything in my life that is of the world and not of the Father, everything in my life that's false and not from you, everything connected to my life that is carnal, that is of this world, I pray you deal with it and deliver me from it. David said, put far from me all false ways. Now we're really talking about reality. And you know, we don't even know the degree that the world still affects us and still conforms us into its mold. But we need to be delivered from it, that we might have a passionate pursuit of Jesus Christ. Look at verses 36 and 37. David says this, incline my heart to your testimonies and not to selfish gain, not to vanity, I think one translation says. Turn my eyes from looking at worthless things. Here was a man who needed a turned heart and turned eyes. And we can't do that for ourselves. How much do we set our hearts upon that which is impure? How often do we, without wanting to, whether billboards or other things, our eyes behold something that's worthless or impure, or we willfully set our eyes upon it? And impurity enters in. And David knew this was so big for him that he didn't say, I'm going to turn my heart away. I'm going to turn my eyes away. No, he said, Lord, you please turn my heart. You please turn my eyes. Deliver me from this. Now, God can work that miracle in a Christian's life. He can just begin to deliver us from turning our hearts toward that which is not of Him and turning our eyes to looking at that which is not of Him. That's how David became a man after God's own heart. And then it makes me wonder, when I see this, it makes me wonder, boy, I can sing the praise songs, I can talk the talk, but when it gets this real, how much do I really want the blessing and the presence of God in my life? Last thing. Well, two more. Look at verse 63. He says, I am a companion of all who fear you. How did David become the man he was? He became that by being a man who made believers his main friends and his constant companions. Question: are your closest friends, are your closest influences Christians or unbelievers? Here's what you do for a grade school science project. Get 50 apples in a basket, healthy, fresh, good apples. You'd eat any one of them. Take a rotten apple, stick it down in the middle, and in 5 days, that rotten apple will be healthy, won't it? Right? No? What'll it do? We know. You have mainly ungodly, wicked people closest to you. You have mainly unbelieving friends, closest friends that you hang with. You'll be like them. They're not going to gravitate to being like you. They can't. They're lost. They need Jesus Christ to transform them. But you hang out with them, and you talk their talk, and you watch what they watch, and you be with them, you will start being like them. You cannot grow deeper and strong having unbelievers as your closest friends that you hang with. Impossible. Scripture, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupts good manners. So, you want to be wise? You walk with who? Walk with the wise. You don't want to be godly? You want to know truth? You hang out with those who know it. When I came to Christ, I didn't know anything. I couldn't have found anything in the Bible. I knew nothing. But one thing I learned soon, if I hung out with my old friends, I wasn't feeling very strong. And the more I would be around strong believers who really were serious about Christ, the more that'd rub off on me. And the more I wanted to be like that. And so, in my life, the one thing I've succeeded at is being a spiritual leech. When I see a man of truth, I just latch on. And I want to learn. I ask questions. When I see praying men, I like to get around them. I can't pray like they do, but I get with them and I like to hear them pray, and it affects me and it helps my prayer life. Become a spiritual, theological leech on those who are stronger than you around your life, and you'll grow. David said, I make believers my constant companions. But you get isolated by yourself, or you're mainly around unconverted people, you will be weak and struggle, and you'll wonder why. Last one. Look at verse 67. David says, before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. Also 75. I know, Lord, that your rules are righteous, and that in faithfulness you have afflicted me. Here's a person. David became who he became because he received and he was changed by God's correction and God's chastening.